So this is class 2. All right, so this is the typical desktop that I had, messy desktop here. And I'm gonna turn my desktop, my tab's open here, so I'm editable now. And there's my text box. So the next one we had was highlighter. Highlighter tool is a good tool. We use that tool a lot. I use it a lot on text documents, but you can use it on drawings as well if you want to put dots or lines in. A couple of things with highlighter. Obviously, we talked about properties and setting up the properties of your highlighter. You can change to different colors. It's already set up default as a highlighter, but you can turn the highlight feature off if you want. That's the little click box there. So what does that do? It's like, well, if you draw over something, let's just go to the text view of this. Where the heck am I? This one. Get this refresh. So if I'm in highlight right now, and I have the highlight unchecked, and I go to draw something on here. That's interesting. I would have expected it to be solid, but it is not. So I'm not sure why that did that. Should have been solid. No difference. Go figure. You will see that is not the case in all the other tools we use here. Not sure why that one's working that way. But try that again. Yeah, you got me. I don't know what that button does now. New one. So for properties, you can change the width or the opacity of the highlight. You can change that to get a little lighter. And that's not working either. Maybe it is. Yeah, it is working. You can kind of see the different level here. I just didn't get the opacity down enough. So I'm at 10 now. You can see it's barely visible now. If I increase that up to 20 and highlight some text, it's a little bit more visible. So you can dial it in. It's set by factory at 100%. And you'll see some other tools that we use. They may or may not have this highlight feature. It may only be opacity. So that's how you make it so that it will bleed a little bit through, and you'll be able to see the text or what behind it. Again, I think we reviewed this last time too. When you're highlighting on a text document, you'll see that it will change. The cursor changes from the highlighter to a text prompt. And what that's supposed to do is it's supposed to allow you to do a little bit cleaner of identification. So when I'm in that view, I can highlight and drag it across, and it only selects the text that I put in there. Whereas if I had the highlight tool, it could be erratic. Now there's ways to clean it up too, but this works pretty well like this. There are text documents that this does not work so well on, and I'll say that sometimes it works poorly on drawings, right? So if you try to select something, it will select everything, like Mike's saying there. Let me see if I can make this work. Yeah. Sorry, give me a second here. This isn't working. I'm gonna have to keep it rolling. Yeah.
What? Yes.
Okay, it's a long way to go to prove a tool doesn't work. So I'm selecting text, and you see what it's doing here? It's selecting everything, and this happens a lot. It seems to be pretty good right now, and it seems to be, if you zoom in tight, it may not do it, but depending on the file, if you select, it can just do that, and it can be maddening when that happens if you're trying to just select one thing with highlighter. So an option for that is you can hold one of the keys, and like I said, there's two keys that do a lot of different things. Is Command and Shift. And this one should be the Command one, but let's see, the back button, yeah. Control and Shift. So if I use my highlighter tool in here and I hit the Control button, you can see I'm freehand now, right? Control, holding Control and moving, now I'm freehand. It doesn't lock into that text thing. So it can be handy if you just want to do a little highlighting and you want to override that. So I'm just, again, holding the Control button and highlighting and clicking and dragging with my mouse. And again, I can change the line width if I want to. I can go up a little bit and then just do one pass through here, you know, and then just instead of swiggling around like that, you know. Another thing you can do with the highlighter, and I'm just going to get out of this drawing right now, go back into, this is my favorite one over here. Let's go up to my template. So like I said, freehand when it's got that cursor display, right? And you know, if you want to draw something straight with that, that's where the Shift button comes in. So again, I'm drawing as straight as I can here, and below it, I'll hold the Shift button, I'll click on the drawing and drag, and now you can see it's a straight line. It works pretty well. It works in vertical and horizontal. So I can do it that way too. Again, holding the Shift button and just dragging down. You know, that can help straighten things up a lot. And you'll learn this happens, it's consistent with a lot of the line tools that you use. Yeah, really that's the only things that I wanted to go over with highlighter, it looks like. And it says in my notes that I can't draw solid lines, even though it has a little checkbox that says highlight here that I can turn off.
Erasing the highlighter we just did.
So, I mean, when you go through that, every action creates a highlight. So I'm going to turn my highlight tool off, but just grab my select tool. And if I select this highlight right here, it selects the whole thing, okay? Now, you can modify it by shrinking it up and doing that if you want. I mean, erasing it is really just deleting it, though. It's not really erasing a portion of it. You know, it's not like content where you can just take the middle piece out of this. But you can shrink it up, or you can just outright delete it by hitting your X up here, or delete, and that one's gone, you know. So that might be something that you do too to as you're working. Don't highlight too much with one click. You know, maybe highlight a little bit and highlight a little bit more, and that way you can just delete specific pieces if you wanted to. Honestly, there's other tools that I use for highlighting, and we'll get into them in a little bit. And a lot of the properties are very similar to these. The next tool to discuss is Pen, and Pen fits very similar properties to highlighter. Unlike highlight, right now that's not highlighting; that's a solid line, right? And if I click the highlight box, now it's highlighting like it's supposed to. So you can toggle with Pen. You can toggle between highlight and solid. You know, so that's one of the things Pen has over it. If I hold the Shift button and I click the pen and draw a line, it will be straight. If I hold the Shift button and I go up, it'll be straight. Well, this is a permanent tool. You can tell this is a permanent tool because it's selected in blue up here. Usually and I'll click out of that, if I'm in highlight, I'll draw one line and that one's in permanent too. Let's find something I can show you that makes me a liar here. There we go. So line is a momentary tool, right? If I select line, I draw a line and I'm done. Then I have to go select line again. That's not the case with highlight. Highlight, you're highlighting and highlighting and highlighting until you're done highlighting, and then you have to select something else to click out of it. Or you click your select tool or something like that, or you right click on the screen. Those things will get you out of that. So again, with Pen, you can keep drawing and doing whatever you want with it. It can be, you can treat it just like a pen. One of the things I use with Pen is if I'm having a meeting with someone on Google Meet or something like that, and I'm reviewing a drawing and I just want to highlight something quick, I might say, this is the thing I'm talking about right here. You know, the cursor gets you half the way, but if you can use this tool, it can be a little easier to kind of select things and show. Or you can trace an outline and say, this is the area I want you to be in right in here. So, I mean, I don't use pen a lot. The only time I really use it if I'm going to do some sort of a whiteboard thing on a Google Meet or something like that. It is kind of cool that you can draw these straight lines and highlight and whatever. And you may even choose to use this tool when you go into a one line. I have one line drawing. So a lot of electricians like to do this. I used to do it with a colored pencil at one point, but if you have, turn this thing off. It's already open. If you have a line you want to highlight in here, you just select this point, and then, and that doesn't work too good. Let me back my back up. Sorry, I have to hold my shift button first. So I gotta get, and this is the tricky thing with pen, I gotta make sure highlight's on, then I gotta hold the shift button, click and drag straight down, and that will highlight that. Now, again, like I said, I don't use this very much for this because it's still a little finicky. Like I said, I have to hold the shift button first, then I have to click the exact point, then I have to drag it down and then I have to start over and over again. There are several other tools that work better than this, but I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of overview of what that is and sometimes what tools don't do well. And I don't think it does this particularly well.
What's another tool that works better than that?
I have to wait, Mike. It's further down the list. It's this one way over here. We'll get there though. We're gonna get there. Yeah. So yeah, I know. I get you. Too bad they didn't put these tools closer together. Maybe I could just grab it and drag it over there. No, I will get to that one, and we will revert back to it. So that's highlight and pen. The next one I have up here is cloud callout, and this is one that I'll say that I've seen a lot of foremen make with several different markups, and it just puts it all together for you. So they call it a cloud plus, but I call it a cloud callout because it does two things. It clouds something and it pulls a call out. So if I select it and I come into my drawing and I say I want to highlight this box out here, it puts that in place for me so I can type my little message in, you know. And again, it's a one-click thing. So if that's what you're looking to do, this is a great tool for it. This is very similar to I should say the properties are very similar to cloud and callout, which are beside it. I don't particularly use this one so much. If I'm going to use cloud, I just use cloud. I don't always have a callout going with it. I do use cloud a lot. So if I select cloud, I mean, I'll be saying I want you to look at this thing here. I might not necessarily identify anything further than that. With cloud callout and callout, you know, you can change. It doesn't need to be cloud either. I mean, it would just be a rectangle at that point. So I guess you could say the reason the way they do it that way is to give you a default, another default you can choose instead of having to go into rectangle and change the line property to this cloud thing, you know. So here we go, right? I selected the cloud and I can change my line style to something else. Standard. Now it's just a box, you know. One of the differences here between the cloud and the rectangle is these grab handles here. They're slightly different with their properties. You'll see with the cloud, there's no mid handles here to grab, so you can't just stretch this in parallel. You have to maybe hold your shift button and drag it. It's an extra thing you need to do that. But Other features of cloud, again, you can, if I switch this thing back to the cloud, I can change the amount of turns in this cloud by shrinking this down or making it bigger. I can change the line width, so I can reduce that to make it lighter weight as well. I can invert it, though I don't know why anybody would, because that just looks a little silly. You can stretch it out, as I'm doing, if it didn't fit something perfectly. I just have to change that back because it's really. I don't know. Can I add a point? I can add a control point. I can add a control point. So if I want to drag it in a different direction, I can do that. So that's right click into that properties of that, and then add a control point. And then I can just drag it down. So again, once you have the cloud, if you need to stretch it out over something, you can do a little bit more with it. Cloud also comes with the highlight. So if it is thick and it's covering things that you want to be able to be transparent, then you can just hit the highlight, and then you should be able to see right through it to what's behind it. And that's a lot of times what I'll do if I'm in a drawing, I might put that into highlight just so that if there's something that's blocking, it's not completely blocked. So that's cloud. Call out is this one here. I use call out. Obviously, I use call out a lot. It's that's one of my favorites. And that's if I'm trying to clarify something that's going on in the document. I do like this blue to yellow contrast for my notes. It seems to hold out well, show up well. It's not the bright one either. So I'll typically, as I'll default my tool, like call out tool with these colors, so that I'll have a blue bold line, and I'll have this pale yellow, which is that second yellow right there for that. And then, like I said, I just hit the default there, and every time I draw a call out now, it's gonna give me that same thing. Again, with this one here, you can change your line style of the call out box. You can make the call out box a cloud. You know, that might be something you want to do. There's lots of other lines in here you can use for it. But typically I just keep it on standard. You can change the end of this line. I usually just leave it as a clean end like that, but if you were inclined, you could come into where it says end, and you could put like a little bullet on there if you wanted, you know, and then it even gives you an option to make that bullet solid if you wanted to do that too. I could change this to blue. Now it's a solid blue point in the end there. There's lots of different options for how you want to use that. You'll notice with the call out too, it has all these grab handles on here. And as you move it, it attaches this leader to different places. And that can be infuriating too, especially if you kind of like where it's coming off, but you can drag it right back. You know, it's just going to give you a default of where it thinks it should be. So if it's in the way of something, you know, you can just pull it outside of it. If you wanted to go off the top, you could have it coming off the top, you know. There's, again, you just drag it around however you want to. So if you wanted to identify two different things, and you said I wanted to identify this thing, and then I wanted to add a leader on here, I could add a leader, and identify this thing down here. You know, if you wanted to join those two things together, you can just pull it up there. That's another one I see a lot of guys doing, is they don't realize that you can actually do the add a leader, and that's just a right click once you're the tool identified, and come right in here and add the leader. If you don't want the leader, you can just hit the delete leader. I just click on it and hit delete leader. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually copy these things and drag them around. And when you do it, you hold the control button when it's selected, click and drag it, and now it makes a direct copy of that. So sometimes it saves a lot of time if you're on a drawing and you're making repetitive notes. You don't have to retype it. You don't have to put the arrow in there again. Once you drop that tool though, this point becomes fixed. You can move the note body, but you have to move this one again. So if I did that again and I selected this one and I held the control button and I clicked it and dragged it, you can see the whole thing moves together. As soon as I let it go, now I can only move the text body. This other piece becomes fixed. Let me just review my notes and see if there's anything else I can tell you about these ones here. I got notice that cloud is a momentary tool. So we did touch on that a little bit, but one thing is if you're going to draw a cloud and you want to do repetitive clouds, instead of coming back up and clicking again, you can double click up here where it says cloud, and you'll notice it stays a solid blue even after I keep going. So now I'm just clicking and dragging, and that's how you can hold a tool fixed if it's a momentary tool.
So how do you reverse it?
If you click it again,
yep,
it should turn it off, and it didn't. So there's a reuse button. I think it's in the tools tab. It says reuse right here, dumbass. Sorry about that.
Tools?
Yeah, it's in tools. So if you select this and you hit reuse, it will.
Right, rid of the bottom.
Yeah, it's just that the double click in here is a little bit quicker. I just wanted to give you the other path to get there. So that's a lot of. You can right click right in the screen, and you can see I went back. I lost all my tools. Now I'm just a select tool in here. And then you can kind of go back in here and either double click it, or you can come into where it says tools, hit reuse. And if you have it selected, I have to select the tool first, then hit reuse. Now it sets it in as a cursor, but I can go back into tools and then unclick it too, and then it goes back. So there's two ways to get out of it. You can stitch an odd shape with a cloud. Okay, so if you have something that you want to, stitch around, you can. It's the same thing as we did with the cut tool. If I need to cut around something, say I wanted to, select this tool, but I didn't want to select this tool and that tool. I just select my cloud, and then I could click once and drag, click and drag. It's not. I'm clicking and releasing is what I'm doing. I'm sorry, and this content is messing me up right now. So I could click right around all this stuff. Click, 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 click and move, I guess you could say. Click, click, click. And now it's drawn an irregular shaped cloud around everything. Yeah, you can have a fill on this too. I mean, this cloud doesn't have a fill. And generally I don't fill my clouds, but if you wanted to, you could fill it. So right now here it says it's no fill in here. But if I wanted to make it green in there, I could make it green. And if I want to highlight it, then now I can see the stuff behind there. Hatch is another thing you can do with it, and I do use Hatch a lot. Hatch just gives you something to fill with that's solid. So a lot of times I'll use these lines, and you can see, now it's lined right through there. So that's what Hatch is. Hatch has its own color as well. So if you want it red, it's red. You can make it blue if you want it blue. It's kind of hard to tell with the fill color inside there, but and you can change that diagonal down. I think, yeah, the scale right here. So I can change the scale and make them tighter or make them further apart. And again, you can, if you find a way you want it, you can just come down here and save it, and you adjust the way you want to save it. So that's kind of cloud callout and callout all in the same thing. Is there anybody get any questions about those ones? Pretty easy. Okay. All right. Moving on. Stamp. Stamp, I do use Stamp a lot. I have a favorite. This is my favorite. If I'm approving something, I'll grab that stamp and I'll just put it in there. And the stamp actually has my signature on it. Okay to pay, the date, and a timestamp in one step, you know. Now, it takes a little bit to set this up, but once it's in there for good. Now, you can do simple ones too. I mean, it may be approved if you want. They have some defaults in here. Here's approved. You know, there's other ones in here too. And sometimes if you're reviewing drawings or something like that, you might want to get into that. You know, I made this one up just for this class here too. It's John Hancock one. It's not too bad to set these things up. You would come into Stamp and create a stamp, and you tell it what you want to tell it, call it what you want to call it, test. You can use a template. I typically like the one with the rounded border, just because it's a little clean. Change your font color to whatever you want. Maybe it's magenta. Maybe the line color is magenta too. I don't know. And then you hit OK, and it'll open up a new page, and it'll give you this kind of thing here. Now, if you want to get into some dynamics of this, you need to open up this other display. So it's a double click on it, and this dynamic view will open up, and it will give you some other options in here. So you can put the date, and this is all editable too with this with your text over here. So that font size is kind of big, so you reduce the font size down maybe. You know, you can add more text in here too. This is really just a text box. You can move that down. You can also double click, add the time. So now it's date and time down here. You can add more text up here too if you wanted to. If you said you just like, you know, add a text box in here, and I want to add my, of course I saved that screwy friggin', change my line style back to, maybe I'll get rid of the lines. Right, line width I'll get rid of. And then I'll get rid of the highlight behind. And then I'll set my text to this color here. And maybe sometimes that happens. Maybe I want to change that to something heavier. You know, you play around with it, you do what you want. How do you get your name in there? That's a little bit more complicated. That gets into images. What you basically have to do is you have to take a picture of your name, and then you have to create an image of it. So you have to email it to yourself. And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail, but just generally you'd email that to yourself, and then you'd have that image of your name, and then you could clean it up, and then you could, as the JPEG, you can import it in here as well. So I don't know if I have a JPEG I can actually import in here. I might have one. Yeah, I could actually do that too. I think I can go into 2 seconds here. Yeah. 'Cause, 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 So I'll take this one here. I'll download that one. Desktop. Now that's on my desktop. I go back in. Sorry, navigation through Mac.
But have you selected that and sent it right to Bluebeam?
I can't really. I have to import it into
You have to
Bluebeam.
import it,
So
okay.
that's another tool. So that's we're almost there. That's so we're bleeding into it. So maybe it's a good place to segue. So this is the image tool that's up here. If I want to put an image in here, then I have to click that, and it will ask me where to look. Right. So it's on my desktop. SellyMac logo right here. I click on it. I hit open. Now it's there. If I draw it in, because you can see I have this image tool in my cursor, I can pull and draw it right in there if I want. And now it's in there. So it's very similar to if I had the signature on here. I don't know if I have that. Let's see if I have this in here. I might have it in here. No. Oh, I do have it on here. So this would be an image of a signature that you'd import. And typically, because the brightness or whatever, you get this background that's kind of dark when you take a picture of something. So what you do, and this ties into image, you would select this image just like I did from the desktop, and you bring it into a document like I had here, and you get this little thumbnail on the right-hand side in your properties. And then they have this thing, it's called mask color. See this little mask color here? If you select it, right now it's got this cross through it, so it's not being used. But if you select it, there's a little eyedropper right here. If you select that eyedropper, what it does is it samples a color that you want to mask or eliminate. So you select a color that you want to eliminate, which would be this gray. Oops. Mask color. There it is. Now I get the eyedropper and the cursor, and you can see the little thumbnail at the bottom down here changes color as I hover over colors, right? And it's very similar. You know, you can see the shading in here, but try to pick a dark area. I click it once, and it sets that as the mask color now. That's the color I'm trying to avoid. If I change this, you can see it starts to strip away all the color in the background, leaving only the signature. Then you wind up having a clean signature. And you may have to do this several times, but that's what you got to do. You strip it all away, and then you have an image that is basically just your signature, and then you just drop it right in there. That's all you do. You just import the image, just like we did with TextBox, put it right in there, and then you have a stamp that says your name on it, and you can put it anywhere. Once you strip it away, like I said, I'm not going to play with that anymore because I don't want to crash this again. You wind up with a clean signature like that. This is just an image. Oh, not that one. This is just an image. You know, it's just a cleaned up image. So you get I can actually copy this if I wanted to, and then go into, I don't know, do I have my other things? It probably didn't save. No, didn't save in here. So again, that's stamp. The name thing is not a whole lot of complication there, but we can go into it a little bit more detail in further sessions. So I'm going to go back up. Try not to crash the computer again, and see where we are now. So taking that out. So image, we got a little bit into image with the stamp. Image has some kind of cool features if you want to, drop pictures into your drawing. Some other things it does too. Let's select that image again. See if we can't mess things up. So select the image, goes to find the image. I get 2 images right now. I don't know what this is. Hopefully it's nothing bad. Open it up. As you can see, it's a picture of a pallet jack. I can paste this thing right in here. And again, it shrinks to size. I can make it bigger if I want to. You know. You have some properties for images as well. You can put a border around it. Sometimes people want to have a border around it. You can see the light, without a line, it kind of bleeds into other things. So you may want to put a line around it. So that's line width. So right now the color of the line is red. So if I increase my line width, you can start to see the line populate around the image. The style of that line, again, is something you can change, is the cloud again. This has, like we talked about, it doesn't have highlight, but it's got this opacity. So it's set at 100% now. If I start to bring this thing down, you can start to see behind it, which can be kind of useful sometimes, depending on what your image is and what you're trying to do. Again, we talked about the mask color thing. So the mask color is really just helping you remove items or colors from this. Doesn't always necessarily have to be signature and gray background. It may be a solid color. Maybe you want to get rid of the color red. You know, maybe there's something that's on your file that's not looking too good. You can hit the mask color, and your eyedropper again come in here and sample that red. And then as you bring your mask up, it should start to bleed away. And I crashed again. I hope I don't crash again. Well, it's starting to go away. I think I'm going to leave that one alone for now until I get some more hard drive. But that's the intent of it anyway. And that's image. You can do some other things with image too, which is kind of cool. If you wanted to, I can select that image, and you can see up in the upper right-hand corner, which I haven't gotten to yet, is these flip orientation. You can flip horizontal and get a mirror image. Sometimes that's helpful if you're trying to show that, or you could do, the other way, you know. This has the, it has the 4 grab handles on it too. Like I said, these are the little grab handles, these little yellow squares in here, or the yellow circles. And depending on what you grab, will tell you what it's going to do. If you grab the corner, it's going to pull that image out in a locked ratio, height to width, so that it stays uniform. If you grab this side one, or one of the top or bottom middle ones here, it's going to stretch it. It'll stretch it out of its normal view. You know, sometimes that's what you want to do, but sometimes it just really looks odd. Once you go messing around with it, you really have to use your back arrows to snap it back into place. But that's, yeah, an image you can crop. So if I want to get rid of the rest of this text and things in here, I just want to get that image, I could crop this. And I could just get this piece. And I reverse the crop. Unfortunately, I did that wrong. Try to do that again. Yeah. That's not what I wanted to do. Oh. I don't know why that did that. Maybe it's because I reversed the image. Try that again. And flip the image back the right way. And hit the crop button. See if it works this time. Now it works. Not sure why it did that when I reversed the image, but it does work. What happened was when I had it flipped, it grabbed the text that was on the opposite side. That could just be a refreshing issue with my computer too. Obviously, I'm having some issues here, but that's what it's supposed to do, is select the one image that you're looking for. So that's crop. All right. I think that's it for image. We're moving on. Next one is snapshot. Snapshot's the one it's used quite a bit. That's the what the cursor looks like in snapshot. Snapshot just samples whatever you're put into its view. So you get this little image, and you can see in the top left-hand corner of the top left-hand corner is kind of like a little crosshair, and then there's like a dotted square. What the intent is you to click and drag around whatever you want to see as your snapshot. And this copies content and it copies images. It's whatever you draw your picture frame around. So this is a very messy drawing here, but if I just wanted to copy this thing and I go to maybe a clean file, maybe I'll add a page down the bottom here. Insert a blank page. And after the last page. And I right click and I hit paste, it copies that exact thing there. So once you make a snapshot of something, you can't modify it anymore. These items in here are all part of that snapshot. It's like a photograph. As with other markups, you can change colors of things, even though it's mixed in and not really an independent markup. But if I went into change colors and I said that anything that's red, I wanted to make green and hit OK, I could change those colors. So it's not to say that you can't make some changes to the markups on that snapshot. That change color thing happens again on a lot of markups. With snapshot, the same thing. You can get these two flippy floppy things here. You can flip it around, keep flipping. You can stretch it too, just like an image. It's also, it's in your clipboard. So if you said you wanted to get out of and write an email to someone, yep. You can paste it right in there, and it's right in there. So a lot of people like this snapshot tool for some of those features. It makes it really quick to grab something you're looking at and just email it right out. You can also, I see a lot of people using it if they're got two drawings and they're trying to put them together. Maybe you have a panel schedule you want to put on top of a floor plan or something like that. You take your snapshot tool and you can grab that. I'll tell you another thing that I do that works out pretty well is if I want to overlay one drawing onto another drawing. I'll have to go over it in more detail in the other class when I get a new computer. All right, so that was snapshot. All right, line. We're into line. And line is another momentary tool. So let's just go down this other drawing here because this one's kind of busy. So I have line in my hand. The property of the line is red. It's a solid line right now. It's relatively small. If I click and release, you can see it pins itself to the drawing and it allows me to pull it around wherever I want. If I hold the shift button and I click this button, it snaps it to straight line. Now, you can see the line went away. What we'll do is we'll do the double click to hold that in place. Now that freezes that tool. If I click again and I hold the shift button and I'm at a 45-degree angle or close to a 45-degree angle, it actually snaps it to a 45 as well. And obviously it does the vertical one too. So I'm holding the shift button and I'm clicking and you can see it just snaps the thing true. Now, it may react a little bit differently on your computer. I know with the Mac, it's a little bit different because it's a different application for it. Typically on an HP, as soon as you hold that shift button, it holds that thing straight, you know. And this is another good way of truing up your lines, holding those things straight. With line, like we said, on other ones, you can make it a highlight. You can increase it in size. You can change its colors. But with line, it's just one line. So line is the straight area between 2 points. So it's not going to allow you to continue, even though it's frozen or it's that the tool is set in there. It releases it every time you click. Now you could draw them together, which means you click it and stop and click it again and click it here and move and click and move and click and move. But when you look at it, it's not really continuous, you know. It does make a pretty decent highlight tool because it pins it, you know, like I said, it'll pin it when you click and then you hold the shift button and then it will be straight when you're done. So it's a little less freehand than the pen tool. But still here, it's not my favorite of highlighting tools. There's another tool coming up, the arrow tool, but I just want to show you quickly. This has a start and an end to this line. So if you wanted this line to start with an arrow and you wanted the other end to start with an inverted arrow, and then you draw your line. Oh, sorry, gotta select the line first. And then start with this one, and then end it with this one when you drew the line. And if you made the line big enough to see, you can see it has that kind of configuration. Again, you can fill these arrows if you wanted to. There's lots of different options here too. Sometimes you do these ones here for callouts. So you draw a line. You want to have a hash mark and a hash mark. Again, the style of the line. Sometimes I create my own lines too. I don't know if I have any in here. Yeah, bus duck. So I drew a line for bus duck. I said I want a bus duck line. So I'll draw a line and I'll call it bus duck. And what is bus duck line? I draw a line and I zoom in on it. It says bus on there. You know, so you can make different lines too if you want to represent whatever you need them to represent. Sometimes it's a little bit busy on a drawing if you're trying to identify different things. This could be like a wire drawing. You can label them whatever you want. It's not too bad to set those things up. There's a manage button down here, and you can go through it, and it will help you kind of take the steps to creating those lines, and then it just populates itself in the toolbox for you. Yep. You got, again, highlight we talked about, and you have opacity too. They act a little differently. Highlight is, highlight is, it's a preset value and it has a lot of pigment to it, but when you do the opacity, and I can see if I can give you an example. This is probably a better one to give you an example of. If I make this highlight, it still looks like it's solid, until you bring it on top of something and you'd see it's not anymore. But you see the pigment level is pretty good. It's got a lot of color to it. If I turn the highlight off and then I just change the opacity, it almost changes the color of the line. You can see once it gets to that, it gets very faint. So they act a little differently. You can see through it, but you're almost pulling the pigment right out of the color. So depending on what you want to do, sometimes you don't have the option, but typically I'll stick with the highlight and leave opacity alone. All right, I think that's all I can really review about line. Arrow is another line. It's basically a line with an arrowhead on it. And like we talked about, right here you go. It's just a default. This thing is set as a default as an arrow. So these two things are very similar. You could almost say I don't really even need the arrow because I can make my own arrow out of a line. But I mean, if you're trying to, do call outs, maybe you want to have that and then draw lines with something else. So just having the ability of having another default tool. But there you go. There's your arrow. You could change that and say, I don't want to start with my arrowhead. I want to end with my arrowhead. Maybe that's what you want to do. And then you could just change it right here. Change it right here and say, I want to end with my arrowhead, or not that way. I want to start with a line, end with the arrowhead. So now, sorry, messed myself up here. Start with the line. And with the arrowhead, I'm starting here and I want to be here. And if you save that as default, it would do that every time you clicked the arrowhead. So, again, you can do a lot to set up these tools in advance with default, but arrow is arrow. The next one I have is the arc, and the arc one is that one can be confusing. I know myself when I draw lines, especially if I'm drawing piping or something like that, I don't always like to have sharp 90s. So if I wouldn't want to draw something like that. If I was intersecting. I would rather have a radius there, or something like that instead of doing that. Sometimes I'll do them square, but I like to have a radius in there. So to draw curves, you got to use this curve tool. You can use it straight out if you select it and say that you want this thing to be green, and you want it to be, I don't know, we say it was like 4 or something like that. And you click into the space, you can see it pins it just like with line, but then it has this curved kind of feature going along with it. So as itself, you can draw a big arc You know, you can also use the shift button here to try to keep it true. And basically what an arc is it's a quarter of a circle. You can actually draw this all the way around 360 degrees and you can see what that arc will turn into in that shape. But as we know, the quarter of a circle is a 90. So sometimes I'll just grab that and use it just like that. And whoa. Now, this isn't the best way to do this, but if you're trying to connect lines, sometimes this is one way to do it. I have to go up on that a little bit, and then drag this guy down, and now I have a radius. If you're using the arc tool right out of here, I mean that's all you can really do. You can make other connections. I mean you could drag it longer, you know, but it's still only a quarter of a circle, you know, so it's, you need to drag it out, you know, if you were looking to do something like that. It's still just one line though. You can't do this long linear thing and have that. That would be adding a radius or an arc to an existing line. And we're going to get into that real quick because we're coming up with my favorite tool next, and that's the Polyline. So again, arc is just it's just a bent line. It's all it is a bent line.
Yeah, and it shows that quarter of the circle, like hit fill.
Yeah.
It defines that.
Right. So here we go, Polyline. And Michael, you had asked what's a better tool to use for highlighting. This is the best tool that I found for using highlighting lines. And the reason is with Polyline is it's a continual line that you can click and change direction as often as you want. It's very fast. And if I can brave it to try to open that one line again without crashing my computer, I'll show you what I mean. So, okay, have it in here. Let's go one line. Okay. So I was struggling before with the with this other one. I got this tool on now. It's set up pretty heavy right now. Let me take this thing down to 4. I don't know if I need it that big, but we'll check, right? So I can come in here. I get this cross here, right? Now all I'm doing right now is I'm clicking. I clicked once. I go to this corner. I click again. I keep going. Now I can see it tracking, you know, and I can see the corner. I'm not actually holding the shift button because I can see what I'm trying to intersect into. I'm clicking again and I'm dragging down. I'm clicking again and I'm just dragging. I'm clicking and then I'm double clicking. And now it's done. That's as fast as I could possibly be with that line and as clean as I can be with that line. You can still true it up if you wanted to, if you were really nitpicky about wanting to be absolutely perfect on that thing. But I mean, that's pretty tight and that's freehand. I mean, there's no other tool I could use to show how fast that could go for a one line. That's the tool I like to use for it. There's a lot of other things you can do with this tool. Again, we had talked about converting things to arcs. So if I was going to make that, let's just go into this other drawing again, back into here and say, I'm going to use this tool again. And I'll use some right angles this time. I'm going to start here. I'm going to hold my shift button. I'm going to come down. I'm going to hold my shift button again. And I'm going to come up at an angle. And I'm going to hold the shift button again. And I'm down. And I'm here and and I'll end it there. Okay, so there's my line. If that was a conduit path or something like that, you say, I'd like to make that a radius right there. Now, I believe if I right-click here and I add a control point, and I right-click here and I add a control point, and I delete this point. Oop, sorry. Put that back. Come back to me now. You have to remove the control point, and then right-click on that line and convert it to an arc. You can see it went the wrong way, but I can actually tune it in a little bit better as part of the line. You know, it's a little smoother. It flows a little bit better. You know, so I mean that's kind of cool with the P-line, Polyline. I want to do this one too, and just drop a control point in here. Drop a control point in here. And I'll delete this one. And right-click on the line, convert to arc, and that one did it the right way. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more really for this tool. I mean, it has a lot of the same features and values that all the other tools have in properties. The thickness, you know, again, the different types of line it will make, how you start and finish it. Again, for me, this is one of my favorite tools to use because it has that feature where it's just snap and go. You click it, you click and drag, and you can do whatever you want with it. There are other lines that we will talk about that have similar features to this, and one is this one over here, which is a sketch to scale line. And there's also measuring features that we have that use the Polyline as well that will give you a length as you go, which is kind of neat if you're trying to get a specific length, depends on some vague or erratic path.
Can you use the like the bamboo pens?
I don't know that you can, Eric, with this.
That'd be really fast.
If you mean to get in here, I mean, some of it's, I mean, you can get pretty good with the mouse too, especially if you're zooming in a lot, you know. With pen, I think you have to be, you really can't change your perspective too much, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was a Polyline. The next one I have out here is call out or dimension. Sorry, my dimension tool. So this dimension tool is not an actual measured tool. This one here gives you this typical dimension call out, as I call it. If I wanted to say how long this line was, I would click it here and I would drag it. And I'd hold the shift button too to this point, and you can see it's giving me a prompt for a length. It's asking me how long that line is. It's not telling me, it's asking me. We have other tools that actually tell you how long something is as long as it's scaled, but I'll say this is 11 foot, 3 inches. So if you have a drawing that is not to scale, a sketch that you've made, and you want to convey to someone what the length is between 2 points, you use this tool because it's not a scale tool. I believe with this tool, such as the actual measuring tool, you can grab the center button, you can drag it up, and it pulls your 2 measuring points up with it. You can also change the text if you'd like. You can double click on it, and it has all the same properties of text as the other text stuff that you use. If we get into properties, and I go on my font size, I can change this to 24, and now it becomes bigger. I can also move this. it's got this little grab handle here. If I hold the shift button and I grab that, not doing it. It's actually not letting me do it here, so. The blue one actually is your pivot handle. So that blue one allows you to rotate in any path you want for that text. To pull the font away. You know what? I think what it is, Chris, is I'm confusing this with actually the measuring tool here.
You can shift and not grab, don't grab the control handle.
Oh, you mean like that? Hey, there you go. You're right. So my mistake there. I was grabbing the grab handle and I was trying to move the line. That's what I was doing. So that allows you to pull the line up and down. Holding the text only allows you to relocate it into different places. And it's kind of cool that it draws that little line there too, to extend it out to show you that's what that call out's for. You can hold the shift button and drag that in as well if you need to. And you can take the whole thing and move it someplace else if you want, or you can hold the control button and copy it and move it to a different place as well. Duplicate it. So that's the call out tool. Again, the only time I really use that is if I have a non-scale drawing and I want to apply dimensions to it. Rectangle. Rectangle is a pretty cool tool. This is another tool that I use for highlighting a lot. If I'm in text, sometimes I'll use it a lot. Instead of using the highlighter, I'll just set this thing up for the highlighting color that I want. So I'll hit my properties, and yeah, let's look at a good enough color. Maybe I'll make it a little brighter. The brighter one. This is the brighter one here. And then I can select a square on the whole paragraph that I want, and if I want to do more highlighting this way, I may hold the control button and click and drag, and I can create a whole new highlighted area. If I wanted to reduce that in size, I use a grab handle and just shrink that down to even a single line. And sometimes this is even faster than using that highlighter tool, depending on what you want to do. You can shorten it up, to just certain areas, but this one works pretty good for highlighting. With rectangle, you get this tool, you can see the little icon of a rectangle in the cursor. When you click, if I just click and release, you can see it's pinned one corner of the square. Maybe you can't see it too well. Let me try that again with some more color. If you click the screen and release, you can see it just pins that one corner and allows you to stretch that box to whatever size you want. If you hold the shift button while you're freehanding like this, you'll see it will change. It's not really doing it for me with the Mac right now, but it will hold it. You can see I'm holding this as a rectangle right now, but it actually pulled it into a true square. So the shift button holding while you're clicking your second point of the square will actually draw a rectangle, will actually draw a square. So again, I'll do that one more time. I'll click the rectangle button. I'll click the drawing once. And here we go again. I didn't default, so let me just fix that right now. It says default. Drawing a rectangle, I hold the shift button, and on yours it's probably gonna true that thing right up as a square. On mine it doesn't, but as soon as I click the other corner, it just draws a true square. Much like the other ones we were talking about, that's your grab handle for rotating. By default, it'll rotate in 15-degree increments. So you can see down here, there's a rotation chart. Tells you how much you're rotating it. So by default, it's 15 degrees. If you hold the shift button as you drag it, you can get more incremental. Further, you can type it in. So I could actually either click this up, down, arrow, and I can go per degree, or I can just type it right in here. Sometimes you get drawings in the buildings at odd shapes or whatever, and you want to draw a square, but it doesn't really fall in line with it. You can use your rotation tool to align a little bit better. Again, it can be done as highlight or not. It can be done with opacity or not. It can be done with the hatch. We've seen the hatch before too. I'm gonna do a little grid inside there. You'll notice with hatch that no matter how you rotate it, I lied to you, the grid stays the same. The grid is always parallel, you know? It's just a background hatch that goes in there. It doesn't follow it.
How did you get to those properties?
These properties, this gear wheel right at the top corner here. So you just have to select the tool that you're using. Right. So I'm selecting this square right now. It's going to give me all the properties that are available for that tool. Okay. If you don't have anything selected, you're not going to have any access to any properties. Okay, this rectangle. Yeah, again, we talked about grab handles, and grab handles change from shape to shape. You just have to make sure the different types of grab handles you have. If you grab the corner grab handle, it's gonna grow it in ratio to height to width. If you grab the side one, it's just gonna stretch, or the midpoint, it's gonna stretch in any direction you pull it in. It's one of the things that makes the rectangle easier to adjust. And even if you're in a rectangle and you want to make it a square, you'll hold the shift button and then adjust it a little bit and it'll pop it right in there for you. Okay, that's rectangle. Circle or ellipse is the next one. And ellipse, very similar to the rectangle, has a lot of the same properties. We will keep it orange inside there, why not? So if I click on the screen again, you can see it's doing the same thing. It pinned one corner, but it's got that blue line around it. Zoom tight. So that's obviously a corner doesn't, a circle doesn't have any corners. So it's difficult to put grab handles on it. So it gives you those arbitrary corners to be able to adjust the size and shape of it. They don't stay with it. So if I just click another spot, you can see they went away, but they dotted, they're not really there. If I click it, it shows it again, just to give you a reference of what that would be in its size. So if I was to drag this point again, it would stretch it out more of an ellipse. And if I grab this corner here, it's keeping that same ellipse and it's growing it in width and height that are in ratio. So it's the same kind of principle as the rectangle. And same as the rectangle again, if I hold the shift button and I adjust this slightly, it makes it a true circle for me. Now I have this as a filled circle, doesn't need to be filled. I could make it highlight. I could make it go away by just removing the circle that's inside it. I use circle a lot. Often I will use circle to represent pipes. So if I wanted to do section of what some raceways would look like, I would draw, maybe I draw a straight line. And I would populate the circle on that line. If, you know, I'm pretty particular, so I may want to know exactly, keep everything to scale. So I might measure something and say, how big is this? You know, so it's telling me to give it a scale. I'll give it a preset of, I don't know, 1/8 inch to a foot. So it's telling me it's 8 foot 7.5, which is a little too big for a pipe. So I'll just change that to 0 foot 0 inches, or 4.5 inches. And that now shows what that distance is. So I will,
That's because you got to calibrate, right?
I had to calibrate the page to scale. That page wasn't to scale. So now I will change my line width, something small. And I'll say that this circle, I'll just shrink the circle down to fit within that means. And this is a little free-handy, but for me, once I get it where I want it, I'm just copying and pasting. So I might take that circle and say, you know, maybe I'll make it blue. For some reason I like blue as electrical colors. You know, then I might have to do another dimension. Maybe I'll change this thing to 6.5 inches. And then I'll just hold this, move this thing over to a center point, or maybe just leave it there. And I will copy this. So I'll control, click, and drag. Now, while I get this free-handed, I'm just going to shift back to shift, and it's going to hold it true. And I'll put another one in there. And maybe I'll do another one too by hitting control, clicking and dragging, holding the shift button. And now I have another one in there. And this isn't perfect, it's close. I mean, I'll show you how to get a little bit tighter than that too, but at least you can start to see what you can do with circle. So for me, that's kind of my process for getting, you know, using circle. Like I said, once you go through properties here, all these things stay really the same. Line styles are all really the same, you know. So that's circle. Polygon, Polygon's a shape, and like P-line, it allows you to draw irregular things. Typically, I use that if I'm trying to identify an area, maybe a specific floor plan or something like that. Sometimes I'll do like areas for controlled lighting or something like that. I'll select a whole area just so I can see it easily. So if I select it, again, you can see my cursor changed a little bit, and say I wanted to draw an irregular shape, maybe this room with this jog in here. I would click up inside here, and I'd come down. I'd follow the wall line till I got to here, and I click again, and drag across, and I come to this line, and I click again, and I come up, and I click again, I come here and I click again. And when I get to the last point, I would double click. And now I have this irregular shape that's covers the inside floor plan of the room. With what do you call this thing again? Polygon. With Polygon, you can add control points as well. So you can put another control point in here later, and you can deviate. It also has, like the other shapes, grab handles. It's got two different sets of grab handles, and you'll see they have different things, different properties to those grab handles. So you get the blue square, and then you have the yellow circle. If I move that yellow circle, that point moves, but that square stays the same because it's the overall shape of the polygon. It's the longest point in each direction. If I grab that, you can see it's just like in the square and the circle, it's growing it in ratio, equal ratio in height. So two different grab handles doing two different things. So one thing that I had in here about this too, and it may be a unique feature to this, is that that shift to hold at right angle. If you're using Polygon, you have to remember to release the shift button. So if I start here and I click, and let me just change this color because it's too bright. Can't really see it too well on the screen. Make it red. So if I click here, you can see I started at one point, and if I hold out and I'm a little bit askew here, and I hold the shift button and I click, it does square it up for me, but you got to release the shift button between your clicks, or it will not hold true. So let's prove that. Okay. So I released. I'm going to go vertical now. I'm going to hold it a little skew. I'm going to click the shift button and click again. And you can see it trued it up. I'm going to hold the shift button and then keep it askew and see what happens. So you can see that time it didn't hold it true because I was holding onto the shift button. So you got to be careful of your keystrokes here when you're going through. And sometimes that may help you if you want to be square or you want to break from being square, depending on what you're doing with that shift button. Okay. Yeah, with Polygon, again, you can convert these to arcs. You have to add control points in there to do it, just like we did in the rectangle, but it's very similar to the rectangle. So if I wanted to do that, I would add a control point. I would add another control point up here. And then I would subtract this control point. And then I would convert to arc. And then I have a nice little arc in there. You can do hatch in there as well, just like all the other shapes. You want to put a different color hatch inside there. Maybe just a little basket weave in there. Okay. That gets us out of the shapes, and it starts us into the sketch to scale. And I'm not going to get too much into the other properties of it. I mean, the standard properties, which is just like we have with all these shapes. It's more about the different features of this. So, and they have some benefits and they have some drawbacks too, and we'll go over those as we go. So this is the Polygon sketch to scale. So I set this drawing up for 1/8 inch to a foot, which is the size of a lot of them. And if I gotta find an irregular room in here again. I don't know, let's try this room here. It's kind of a little irregular. So if I sketch this thing out, I'm gonna say, I'll start at this corner. Oh, it's already asking me again. Did I not using this drawing already? eighths of foot. Okay. If I click and move and click, you can see it's starting to open up this little dialog window telling me my dimensions as I'm going. If I click again, it resets. It tells me how far I go. I can move. And I guess I'm going to take it. I'm just going to take it inside here. And then I'll. This thing's getting in my way here. I can actually, I should have been able to double click there to close it, but I'll just come over and close it. So with this tool, when I've done that, as long as I'm scaled, so I have a scaled drawing and I've told the tool what the scale of the drawing is, or it knows what the scale of the drawing is, it will give me the square footage. It will actually give me more than that. You can see this one calls it patient bath because that's the last tool that I had set up for default in here. But you can change those properties as well. So right now I have it labeled as patient bath, but I could just have this as now it's called living room, and now it's called living room. So I can actually have that set as a default in there. It also has the square footage of it shown here, and that's in the properties again. You can see show caption. If I edit that, I can change the different things that are visible. So I can make it the wall area. I can make it the length and get rid of the area and the width, and tells me the size of it that way. And unlike the other tools, you can set that as a default too. So if you have a bunch of rooms you need to have lengths and widths to, you can use that to kind of calculate.
How did you set your scale? I see in properties where it says
Yep.
scale.
So right underneath the properties here, you have this measuring tool here. You have a calibrate, or you have this preset.
Okay.
Now, it gets a little tricky when you're trying to scale a drawing, because it depends on if that scale that's embedded into the drawing is accurate, or if it's been adjusted in some way. So sometimes I'll do a double check in there too. Yeah.
An easy way to do it is if you're on the job site on your drawings,
Yeah.
do a known dimension, like a door frame.
Right.
It's 40 inches wide,
Right.
do that. Do the calibrate.
Yeah.
40 inches and apply the scale, and now you can do it. Or if you go all length.
Right. That's a double check. So, I mean, the door thing works good. Typically what I'll do is I'll go to the structural file. I'll find out what the center of the center is on the column lines, and they usually have a dimension right in there. So once you know what that column to column is on the dimension 30 feet or 35 feet, you can find that anywhere, right? So one thing that I didn't really like too much about this Polyline sketch to scale, and it's a little bit different than rectangle, is the lack of the ability to move lines parallel. They don't have any of the midpoints, so you can't stretch this thing out. A cool feature is once you adjust it, if I adjust this, it actually changes the dimensions that are in here as well. So anytime I make an adjustment, it will adjust those dimensions too. But you can't, I tried, you hold the shift button, it won't pull it true anymore. So it gets a little difficult to try to make sure your lines are square once you're drawn. while you're shifting, if you're going through and you're creating this, if you click one of these, that'll work. If you're drawing in here, like I was freehanding it, but if I clicked and I held the shift button, it should still, no, it doesn't. It doesn't hold it true. I thought it would, but it's just not doing it. So you're kind of a freehand move when you're doing the polygon. But it is nice to have that feature if that's something you need, if you're trying to get square footage of specific rooms. Odd shaped rooms, I should say. The rectangle it's almost identical to it, except it has the same features as the square. So I mean, if you draw, if you have a square room or a rectangle room, you just can click the corner and drag it. Now, you can see this dialog box for the rectangle is a little bit different. It's got some more windows there. It says width, height, and rotation. So I can draw this square and I can put it right where I want it, or where it, I should say rectangle, where I think it should go, and it will give me that outline. And I can throw my caption in there and it will tell me what it is. I can also define what I want it to be. I could say that I wanted to have something 4 feet by 4 feet. If I select that box and click one corner, I can type in what I want that to be. If I want it to be 48 inches, I just type in 4 foot-0 inches, and then hit the tab button. Important to hit the tab button, and then I can type in, let's call it 8 feet, 8 foot. Let's mix it up a little bit. Dash 9.5 inches. I think that was inches. Hit enter, and now it's drawing that box. That's the size of that box. If I want to change the captions of that box now to show me what it is, edit, show caption, edit, length, width. Did I put 25.7 in there? Thought I had 8 feet, but let's do that again. Maybe I screwed something up there. 4 feet. Oh, that's right. It's length, not height. There you go. See what that is. Height. You're right. There it is. Sorry. So, I mean, that's kind of cool too if you want to actually make things. I mean, you can see the way I did it before. It's a little difficult to make a tool and stretch it out and change this way. Here, you just type it in. If you want to modify this, however, it's not as easy to do. Like I said, you can't just, it's not easy to just make this thing square again. You can drag things around, but once it's out, it's kind of hard to straighten it up again. Like I said, you can't hold your lines true anymore. So you just kind of have to give up on it and start again, you know? I do not use this a lot. Typically, I will draw a rectangle and I'll use my scale tools to make that rectangle the size that I want. Because this one, like I said, it just does not adjust very well. Circles, the same thing. Again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it because it's the same features. You can see this one has slightly different grab handles in here. It is an ellipse, but it's when you when you select it and you place it, again, do another one. If I click once, it's dragging out a radius. Hold the, there you go, shift, I'm sorry, this is the control button. I just double tap the control button. And now I'm an ellipse. Now I'm a circle. It's just toggling through the control button. Now it's that way. Now it's that way. Now it's this way. So it's slightly different controls on it. And these grab handles, they work a little differently. You would have seen them on the arcs that I was drawing. If you grab one of these and you pull it, you can see it starts to distort it a little way. It's like a little seesaw on there. And you can pull these in, you know, whatever direction you want. Polyline, we talked about too. It's, you can draw a line and have those incremental lengths. So if I start off, hold my shift button, please. See if that works again. Shift is not really working for this like it does on Polyline. But when I'm done, I have the length of that line, 62 feet long. Now I think if I go into show segment values here, it'll tell you each length of each point to point, which is kind of cool too. That may be a little bit more than you need and can get a little busy. Again, you can change that font size, you know, and make it really small. And that way it's not clouding things up too much. But that is another pretty cool tool. If you go into your ruler here, that has another one in here called Polylength. It's a similar tool to this. If I click and click, you can see it's actually showing me the lengths as I'm going. The total and the last increment. And it does basically the same thing. Okay, that gets us through all the different shapes. The last section here is alignment. And there's not a whole lot to go through with this stuff. And I think we are getting close there, right? So I'm just gonna show a few more things with the alignment, and it's really, there's only a few little nuances I wanna show about them. I'm gonna clean up some of this other crap. Delete this. Delete some of this stuff in here. And once I go over the alignment, you'll kind of get a sense. I just want to focus on these misshaped circles that are here. Not that one. Not that one. This group of circles right here. Okay, so you can see they're all different sizes. They're all in different locations, and they're somewhat different shapes too. So I'm going to select all of them. If I can. Oh, this is so I have to select them independently because I'm on a, okay. So I'm going to move into alignment tools, and these are the alignment tools. And when I selected them, you can see they all lit up, okay? So the first one here is align left, all right? So it's telling you that it's going to align everything to the left, everything that I've selected to the left. Just parallel to where it is right now. So they're all just gonna all slip over to the left. So if I click it, you can see they all just stack right up there. Everything's aligned to the left-hand side. I can hit the undo arrow, and they all go right back to where they were. And they unselect again. Now I have one that's a center line. The center line is going to do a similar thing. It's going to just pull everything into the center portion. I've selected all these things. And I believe the first one was selected was this one right here. So what I believe is going to happen is it's going to align with the first one that you select. The center of the first one you select. So let's see if that happens. And there you go. So that's something that's important to remember too when you're using alignment. It's important which one you select first. The one you select first is what you want everything else to align to. So I hit my undo arrow again. And again, you can see that's the first one selected. If I want to make another one, I just have to unclick it and click into this one instead. And now I'll say, I'll shift select, shift select, shift select, shift select. And the first one I picked was this guy here. So I'm going to say, now I want to right align. I'm going to right align to that first shape. And there it is. Right align to the first shape that I selected. I'm going to back out of it again. And now I'm going to have to shift select again, 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 again. And then remembering that this is the first one that was selected, we have the top align. So here's the top of this one. If I'm only saying select the top align, it should bring everything right down to the same. It's not going to change the shape. It's not going to change the size. It's just going to bring all the tops to align to this one top. Select that one, and there we go. Everything's aligned to that one top. These are great tools if you have a rough alignment of things. Just like I was doing with my conduits, I was using the scale tool to place them about 6.5 inches apart, but I was still freehanding things quite a bit. When you do this, now you have a better shot of more fine-tuning the alignment. All right, so I'm going to back out of that again. They go to those irregular locations. I'm going to shift, select. Oh, that's not working. Come on. Please tell me I'm not. There we go. All right, I'll make that the center one for the next one. That's the first one now. So I'll shift select, shift select, shift select, shift select. Okay. Next one's center align. I'm center aligning. Again, this was the first one, so they all align to the first one I selected. Backing out of it. Shift. Shift select. Shift select. Shift select. Oh, and see what I did here? See what that is? That's a grab handle. Okay, that's a grab handle on this background mat that I have here. So it's thinking that I want to align this as well, and I don't want to do that. That's another thing to be careful of what you're selecting. It's going to align everything you select. So I'm going to shift, unselect that, and then that one goes away. Now all I've got shown is those items there. And that's the bottom one. I'm going to breeze past the bottom because I think it's pretty obvious that right now what that's going to do. It's going to align the bottoms. All right, so this one here is align width. Align the width. That's a little different. Let's click this and see what happens. So the first one I selected was this circle right here. So it's making the widths of all the items I selected the same width. Wherever they stand, it's not aligning them to the left or the right or top or bottom. It's aligning them so all the widths are exactly the same. I'll undo that again. Shift selecting, shift selecting, shift selecting, shift selecting. Again, this is my first one that's been selected. So the next one I have here is the height of line. So the height of line is the distance between the top and the bottom. That's the height. So if I click that one, you can see they all stretched out to match the same height as that. So again, these are really simple when you think about, you know, what they're doing. It tells you what they're doing. They're aligning the height. They're aligning the width. The big thing to remember is the first thing you select is what everything else is going to align with. You raising your hand? Yawning? Okay, you scratching? All right, I know it's getting late. All right, I like I said, I knew this was going to go fast, and I want to wrap this all up here. There's the line size I'm not going to get into. It's going to make everything the same size as that. And that's kind of obvious too. I don't know why you would want to get in there if you have different shaped things anyway, but these last two are the ones that I kind of wanted to show, and I use these a lot. Not that I don't use these, I do use these a lot, but these ones here are what I'm talking about with aligning conduits. If I had things kind of close and I selected everything and I hit this distribute horizontally, it's going to keep the same space between these. Now, it's between the shapes that are irregular, but the space between here and here is the same as the space between here and here, and the space between here and here, and the space between here and here. So it's very literal what they're saying. You know, it's distribute the shapes so that they have the same space between them. If they're all the like size shapes, then they're going to have the like size space between them, and they're going to measure the distance, the same distance, center to center. The next one is distribute horizontally, or vertically rather. So again, that is this one was I'm not really sure what I did there. Sorry, hang on a sec. I should have unselected that. So yeah, distribute vertically. And because I had the same one selected, it's doing the same thing. I have to choose a different one. Let's choose this one. This one. Maybe it's because they're already distributed vertically the same amount right now. I think I already did that. That's why it's doing it that way. I have to move this one out of alignment. Oh, there you go. That's what's going on. I selected the background. Okay, now I hit it. It did not do what I thought it was going to do. But I do have different shapes, so that could be why. So again, because it's different shapes, it doesn't look like they're aligned, but as it sees the different shapes, they are all aligned equally. And that's all it's doing, equally distributing. Okay. We already went over these last two here, so I'm not gonna get into those two. It's the flips forward and backwards. They're not highlighted right now because it doesn't really affect those. That's all the tools that I had to kind of go over today. And this has been just an overview, okay? I like to just see if you guys have any questions before we wrap things up today. Anything that you'd like me to go over?
Your accounting tool?
There is a counting tool.
Or is that in the next class?
That's in a separate class. That's part of that. I know you're yeah. I mean, The counting tool is right here. It's under measurement. So you can see this little count right here. Count, if I go into properties, I can use any of these symbols. If I wanted to do check marks like that, I could come in, I can apply things and just say this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and keep going. And then when I'm at the end, I can hit my selection tool and click on it, and it will tell me when I hover over it, how many? 12 check marks. If I go down into my bottom draw here that we talked about earlier, and I look for count, call out, cloud, count measurement right here. It keeps that number for me. And like I said, with there's a lot of room on this one. There's a lot this thing does. So that's why a whole class is needed for this one thing,
Okay.
you know? And, but that's it in a nutshell, Eric. There's you can change these symbols, you can change the colors, just like we talked about with all those other properties. You come into the properties, you change them. You know, a lot of times if I had receptacles or whatever, I might use the circle, and then I changed my opacity so I could see through it, you know, and then I put all those things on there. You can do an automatic count too, but you'd have to have something that had some symbols to count on it.
The box over on the right can choose symbols showing like receptacle switches,
Right.
panels. Are those defaults?
What are you talking about, Eric, now?
So on under properties, you know, we had your check mark.
Yep.
Go all the way over to the drop down where it says custom count.
Where are you looking here? Sorry.
It's under measurements, under properties where the check mark is. Oh, go where the blue check mark is.
Yep.
Down right there, go all the way over to your right. Click down there, yeah, and then you have.
Yeah, these, I'm not sure if these ones come with the toolbox that you download. Like there's a whole bunch of toolboxes that you can actually
I
download.
saw that for
Off-
different trades.
Yeah, I got a ton of them in here. I don't use nearly half of these things, but that's why. Here's your construction symbols. It's pulling them right from inside here.
Right.
You know, I don't often use these.
Because they probably don't match. what
They
we have.
don't, you know, they have a lot of stuff, and I think the estimators here, they have their own symbols too, you know, and then they embed the data into them, and then they just save them in their toolbox. Like we talked about, this is a toolbox up here. You know, I can create a tool and I can save it, and then that becomes the tool. So sometimes just making your own that you're going to use over and over again is more valuable. But they can give you some ideas too. So. Yeah, sorry, Eric. I know you had your heart set on getting into. It's just there's just so much area to cover, you know. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions about what we covered? No? You're good? Questionless? Okay.